Welcome to In Depth with Academia. I'm Richard Price, CEO of academia.edu, and today I have a paper to discuss that's honestly pretty fascinating and, well, very relevant if you're interested in how we actually evaluate scientific journals. Now, before we jump in, let me just remind everyone, I'm not here to endorse this paper or its findings or, say that this is the final word on the subject. I'm here to kind of walk you through it in a neutral way, just to get you acquainted with what's in it, what the author claims, and what it could mean for you as a curious reader or researcher. So what are we looking at today? The paper's called Scientific Journal Equity Index, or SJEI, a multi-dimensional metric for equitable journal evaluation, and it's authored by Karim Hnid. So if you've ever thought, wow, journal impact factors are everywhere, but are they fair? Well, you're not alone. And that's exactly the sort of core question this paper dives into. Let's talk about that core problem first. Journal impact factor, or IF, is this number everyone knows, right? If you're in academia, it dictates how journals, and sometimes even researchers, are valued, but if only looks at how often articles get cited over a short window, and that short-term lens creates big problems. For example, it can totally favor certain fields, like clinical medicine, where papers get cited quickly, and shortchange others like basic science or engineering, where impact kind of unfolds more slowly. Tons of funding, tenure, and even research directions are affected. So if you care about fairness in research and representation, this really, really matters. H. Hnid's paper says, look, we've got all these alternative metrics like SCI Margot Journal Rank, CiteScore, Eigenfactor, and so on. But honestly, each has its own weird limitations, like maybe they just reinforce old hierarchies or are, too focused on certain factors. No one metric can balance prestige, immediacy, visibility, and long-term impact and do it fairly across all the scientific fields. So the SJEI jumps in as a fresh approach. Let's break down how the SJEI works. This is the method stuff, and bear with me because it's actually pretty clever. The SJEI is built by combining three main things: the SCI Margot Journal Rank, or SJR, which gets the biggest weighting at 50%. This kind of reflects journal prestige. Cites per document, or C2, which gets 30%. So that's recent influence, how much people are reading and citing latest work. And impact factor itself, but only at 20%. That's much less than usual. These are all converted into percentiles within their fields to minimize the weirdness of comparing like economics to biology. But here's where it gets spicy. They multiply that base score by a temporal correction factor. This little math tweak adjusts for how long a journal's impact actually lasts. So, if a journal's 5-year impact factor is way bigger than its 2-year impact factor, it says, hey, this journal's work matters for a long time, not just in the short burst. Cool, right? The idea is to create a score that's not just about popularity, but also about lasting influence, and that works across very different fields. Now, what did Hnid actually find when the author applied SJI to a bunch of top journals across clinical medicine, basic science, social sciences, and engineering? Something neat happened. Journals in different fields that usually get skewed by these one-size-fits-all metrics ended up with much more balanced SJEI scores. The SJEI was way better at correcting for disciplinary bias. Statistically, it correlated pretty well with older metrics, so it's not completely reinventing the wheel, but it had less variation between fields. That means if you're a researcher in, say, social science, this index is probably a fairer reflection of your field's impact compared to just impact factor or eigenfactor. And here's an insight that you can take away. If you're a researcher, student, or just someone following science, this tells you that metrics shouldn't be taken as gospel truth. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes math and assumptions about what counts as valuable, and sometimes those assumptions just don't fit the science you care about. Metrics are tools, not absolute truths. Now, one little digression here. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if we ranked like podcasts or music albums by some multi-pronged percentile-based equity metric. Would jazz always lose out to pop? Or could we fix that too? I mean, not really the point, but it's a funny rabbit hole, right? Back to the Sjei, though, the author is careful to point out some limitations. This index depends on data sets, it uses some subjective weightings, and the temporal adjustment isn't perfect. It's not a magic bullet. Karim Hnid suggests future studies, tweaks, all that. So this is a starting point, not an end. So what does this mean for you? Well, next time you see a debate over the best journal or read university guidelines based on a single metric, maybe pause and think about what's underneath those numbers. Maybe ask, are we being fair to all the fields? Are we missing voices because they work in disciplines with slower impact? And if you're involved in research evaluation at your institution, hey, maybe think about integrating more balanced, multidimensional metrics, or at least questioning the old ones. That's it for today's In Depth with Academia. I hope this brought you some new perspectives, maybe got you questioning how we assess scientific merit.